It's Kent Hance. Saying of the day today is getting old is like climbing a mountain. You get a little out of breath, but the views are much better. This is usual Monday morning, but it was not a usual week last week. You had the Charlie Kirk incident where he was assassinated, and you had 9/11 anniversary, 24th anniversary. Made us all think back to where we were and what we were doing on 9/11. And I've mentioned before, but I was in Malta visiting Ambassador Tony Gioia, who was the ambassador to Malta appointed by President Bush, and came back to the ambassador's residence, and there were jeeps out front and with machine guns on them, and they told us what happened. It was hard to believe when we got inside and started watching on TV. And we were scheduled to leave the next day, and the result was we were there another week and came back to vacant airports at DFW and also at London Heathrow. They had very few people, just people changing one flight to another. Sad day, and we overcame that, but it just a realization that how short life can be. Then last week, Charlie Kirk, who was the founder of Turning Point USA, was assassinated in Utah Valley University. One of the top leaders and administrators at Utah Valley was Scott Cooksey, who worked for me in development at Texas Tech and then was named head of development and retired a couple of years ago. But very familiar with the school, said it's a good school, pretty conservative, and that would have been, the audience would have been a great audience for Charlie Kirk. Going back on Kirk, he was one of the founders. The other was Bill Montgomery, and Bill Montgomery had helped start the Tea Party, and he heard Charlie Kirk speak at an event at Benedictine University, which was located in a town in Illinois and in Mesa, Arizona, and it was Youth Govern Day, and he was really impressed. Kirk was a senior in high school about to graduate. And so he got him over the side afterwards and talked to him. And Bill Montgomery said, you need to go big time with what you're doing. You can be really effective. And he talked him out of going to college. He said, you've got so much talent. This thing, what you're trying to do. And they came to Turning Point and they're going to try to change the ideas of a lot of college students who were on college campuses where they were teaching anything but moderate conservative ideas. And he convinced him not to go to college. They started, Jenny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's wife, was one of the advisors. And now they've got over 500 employees. In 2023, the last time records were available, they had $85 million they raised 2 years ago and spent 83. They were staying close to their roots, and they've got a Turning Point endowment for money that they invest in, and they're big on college campuses. We had Charlie Kirk at Texas Tech on October 22nd of 2020, less than a month before the presidential election. He did an outstanding job, had a big audience, got a lot of questions, some of them tough questions, but, none that you thought that somebody's going to do something crazy or stupid. And he engages in debates, and he is so well prepared that lots of times he will take facts and talk people down from what they were thinking or what they thought was correct, and will at least engage in a session of exchanging ideas and he is a conservative, a man of religious faith, and leaves behind a wife, Erica, and two little kids. Just a sad day, and I think almost everyone uh, gave condolences, and the only one, Jimmy Kimmel, said, and I don't think anybody's thought he's ever been funny, but that it was all Donald Trump's fault, and that Jimmy Kimmel's always going to say that. Trump did say that a lot of the people being killed or a lot of people being shot, just like Bernie Sanders, his one of his supporters is the one that shot the Republicans that were out practicing for the baseball game and almost killed Congressman Scalise from Louisiana, and that was something that Bernie Sanders didn't have anything to do with that. That the guy was big supporter of his, but it just tells me there are enough people out there. I had ATF people wanting to give me security at town hall meetings, and I said, well, I don't need security, and they said, look, if somebody reads in the paper you're going to be at a certain place at a certain time, if they're going to do something, they know where you are, and if we're there and somebody stands up, we can stand up and try to calm things down, or we can take action need be. And so I used them after that at town hall meetings. Never had a problem. But that Congress writes the rules. Remember this: if you decide you want to hit a congressman, who wrote the laws? Do you think they might protect those people? It's pretty harsh. You can get up to 20 years, I believe it was, that if you strike a member of Congress, if you aggravated assault on them. So what happens now? Turning Point will not go away. It's too big an organization, and they've got such a big budget. They've had supposedly over 18,000 applications to start a chapter in a college or in a high school since this happened last week. But it's just a sad deal, and it says something about society that people think that the way to solve a problem is go shoot somebody that you disagree with. That creates more problems. Doesn't solve anything. And I think that one of the things happened to get on cable TV. You got to, and they go 24/7. You've got to say something pretty sensational to get on, and result is a lot of people say pretty outlandish things, and it becomes a problem, and it you don't know where it ends, but it certainly needs to come down. I think all the Democrats say it's totally Trump's fault. I don't believe that. It's not. Is his rhetoric high? It is, just like the Democrats are high. The governor of Illinois has been pretty tough, but at least he had a statement that was not, blaming. It was trying to think of the families and the families involved. It's just so sad and breaks my heart to see, a young guy like that and has a future in front of him, and his, his wife, two little old kids all of a sudden don't have a dad, and that's hard to explain. And I think that this will live on forever. There's a lot of different types of turning point issues. They had a school board watch list where they thought there were liberal school boards and that encourage people to run for school board. Like in this country, lots of times for a city council in a small city or a school board, it's hard to get people to run. And there was one time there was a town out in West Texas, and a guy ran for the school board, and when the election night came out, he got one vote. And I knew there were going to be problems because he and his wife went and voted at the same time. So, he knew that either she didn't vote for him or he didn't vote for himself, and he knew who he'd voted for. anyway, that marriage dissolved a few years after that. I think they had problems reconciling their differences. Last week there was a deal came out. People filed on for a divorce in Florida, and the reason was they could not come to an agreement on the name of a child. And I would say that that's pretty shaky marriage to start with. If you go to the point that you can't agree on a name and then you file for divorce, it was a little unusual to say the least. The NFL keeps statistics on how much beer is sold every game and in the season. And the number one beer drinking team, fans, Arizona Cardinals. And I understand that because, in September, October, even November, it's going to be warm. It's going to be pretty hot. In last place was Green Bay. And I understand it gets colder there. And so that'd be, that's understandable. But Philadelphia was up there real close, and there's no reason on whether that should be. But Philadelphia, they have a justice of the peace that can set bonds on people at the stadium. They have a little courtroom set up there, and that you can get bailed out. And I guess they think that's being good government service, that you can get bailed out that day that you get arrested for public drunkenness. And a lot of teams just have some buses, and the buses become the jail, and they'll put somebody in that bus and handcuff them to something and leave them there. And lots of times they'll just let them go when it's over, because if they got arrested in the first quarter, not a good sign for you that got arrested in the first quarter. But the fourth quarter, you may be more agreeable, just agreeable to try to call bygones be bygones and move on. You may have your attitude of yelling for your constitutional rights in the first quarter might, by the end of the game, be things like you'd be saying yes sir and no sir, and can I sit over there? Can I do this? And a little time in there helps to reflect on certain things. There was a story about a chain of chicken restaurants, and that what was the best chicken restaurant, and I like Chick-fil-A, and I think they do a good job. KFC came in last, and I always kind of liked KFC. I don't know. I don't go look these up. Somebody sends them to me, and I glance at them. Some of them are pretty unusual from time to time. Also, a guy, and I've done this before, a guy hired a mariachi band to do something. I hired one. I was trying to do a business deal in San Antonio. It's been about 20 or 30 years ago. And there was a mariachi band, and they kept getting up when I was talking about what we were going to pay for this land and everything. We were really trying to negotiate. And so I got up, went over and talked to the guy that was in charge of the band, and I gave him $100 if they'd go to the far end of the restaurant, as far as away from my table as they could. Here's $100. Y'all go over and to far end play. And they stayed there for a long time. I don't think anybody ever gave them any money to leave. And they weren't bad, but they were bad for me trying to, get a business deal. And also last week was the week, and a lot of you won't remember this, but free refills of soft drinks at restaurants. Where do you get free? When did that start? And that started in 1988 at Taco Bell. Pepsi owns Taco Bell, and Pepsi, the CEO of Pepsi, was a guy named Don Kendall back then. It was a friend of mine, and he said, they owned Taco Bell, and they were they were serving with Pepsi, and so they felt like that, it wasn't going to cost that much more, and it would get everyone, wanting to come there because you get free refills. And result of that is that I don't think there's a chain now that doesn't give free refills. And last week was also put out that somebody wrote a story about that Marilyn Monroe and Hugh Hefner were born in the same year. I don't know what that has to do with this show. I don't know what it has to do with anything, but somebody sent that in to me. And I guess, they wanted me to talk about that, but I don't know anything to say about, Hugh Hefner and Marilyn Monroe born the same year. That may have been the start of the sexual revolution, or I don't know, but I didn't spend a lot of time. We didn't do any research on that whatsoever. That we also found out there was a survey on people that made their bed, and that 71% of the people that make their bed are happy, have a happy attitude in life. And 62% that don't make their bed have an unhappy look in life. And so, in the military, they always change. You had to make that bed, and it had to be right, had to look good. And it didn't have to look like that somebody drunk had made the bed up or even slept in it. They also did a survey on what were the happiest states and the unhappiest states. Well, the 10 most happy states, number one was Hawaii. Well, I could have guessed that. The weather's good all the time. But the only bad thing about it, Hawaii's always in a race with California on who can tax the most and put up the most government regulations. So that one, you still got to think about that. The least happy, 10 least happy states, number one was West Virginia. And, I've been to West Virginia, some football games. I always enjoyed it, and it's a pretty state. But Texas wasn't in the top 10 or the bottom 10. And that, Utah was the number one as far as your work life. If you had a good atmosphere and good work life, well, then you also, had a chance to live in Utah, which is a great state. Yeah. Now, here's a news bulletin that I got. This one, in China, if you go in the toilet, go in the restroom, and you shut the door, there is a screen, and you have to watch an ad on the screen before you can get the toilet paper. And you talk about a captured audience. That, my friend, is a captured audience. You don't get any paper until the ad is played. And some of them are 30-second ads. Some of them are a full minute. But, who in China was sitting there? They got 1 billion people, so somebody can sit around and say, well, I can make a little money on that. John Whitmire is the mayor of Houston. And when I was in the legislature with him, he was a House member, later served in the Senate a long time, but he had a bill to outlaw pay toilets. And somebody had complained about it, pay toilets, and I think it were Houston Hobby or somewhere, you had to put a quarter in to get into the pay toilet. And so he was trying to outlaw it. The guy fighting it was Ron Clower out of Garland. And he came back to the floor one time, and I could tell he was upset about something. And he had killed the bill, he thought. And when the vending machine bill came through, Whitmire put an amendment on it, making pay toilets vending machines and outlawing them, and which was very clever on his part, but it still didn't get passed. Also, a couple of weeks ago, we had a gambler that was on a ship, a cruise ship, and he ran up a bunch of debt. Rather than pay the debt, that they were near some place, and when they pulled out of port, he jumped off. And I would say that he has maybe a gambling addiction, but he has a mental problem also to do something like that, to jump off that cruise ship. The odds are that, you're probably not going to survive it. He did, and they had him liable for over $100,000. There is an article that was written a couple of weeks ago on the 6 rudest things you can do if you're a house guest. Well, I'd say number one would be in the house guest. That may be the rudest thing you do, showing up and saying, I'm going to be here for a while. Number one thing that is snooping. Don't look in the medicine cabinet to see what they're taking or not taking. And then number 2 is making a mess and trying to hide it. The third one is trying to tell them how to be a better parent. Look, I wouldn't say that if they were at my house or anyone. If you want to get in real arguments, tell somebody how to raise their child or something. That they will tell you real quick if they needed their opinion. They would let you know. They had other things in there but it was kind of comical that someone would spend the time on what you should do. Lastly, Elon Musk, week before last, it came out that he wasn't the richest guy in the world. Larry Ellison, he was the co-founder of Oracle. But then after they looked at it and they found that Elon's net worth was $384 billion compared to Ellison's $383. So even though he was out a few days, he came back to the first. If you cashed in $300 billion and bought bonds, you'd probably wind up buying them all, that were zero interest bonds. The result would be that you would live tax-free at about $12 billion a year, and that's about $1 billion a month. You couldn't spend $1 billion if you wanted to, unless that, you go on a shopping spree and it wouldn't be big enough. I mean, $1 million would be hard to spend. One last thing, friend of mine, Rob Johnson, his brother Gordon Johnson passed away last few years. Rob's dad was parliamentarian at the House and the Senate, one of the most knowledgeable guys ever in state government. Rob played football at the University of Texas, and the freshman coach was Spike Dykes. And he called me, or he sent me an email and said that he's got some Spike Dykes stories. So I'm going to try to get a hold of him and get those stories or get him on to tell the stories. But Spike Dykes was a colorful guy and was a fun guy to be around. And that he was the one I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that was looking for this player, and they said he didn't know the meaning of the word fear. They went to check on his grades, and he said fear wasn't the only word he didn't know the meaning of. There were lots of words he didn't know the meaning of. Hope you have a good week, and just pray for our country. Bye-bye.